in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Stephen Jackson with Imprintables Warehouse, and I want to thank all of you for taking time out of your busy schedules and joining me today with Rwear Studio, Bring Rhinestones to Your Shop. We're going to talk about a specific program, Rwear Studio, and how to use the different functions in it. We're going to go over some designs. We're going to go over the tools in there, the stone library. We're going to talk about multi-layer designs and even multimedia designs. So I hope it's a lot of good, useful information for everybody out there. And I encourage questions throughout the webinar, and we'll try to get to them towards the end of it, unless there's something a little bit more urgent where my assistant Jody will help me out and bring it to our attention. So going to go into, we've got a couple of poll questions. There's 4 of them. I'd appreciate it if everybody can just answer as quick as you can so we can get into the meat of the webinar. And Jody should be bringing them up here.
Yep, the first one's been launched. Do you currently produce rhinestone designs?
I'm trying to adjust mine here. Hopefully I don't mess anything up here. I didn't have a view up. I was looking on there and saying, why can't I see this? So what we're asking, currently produce rhinestone designs, anything if it's a pre-made or if it's something you make yourself. So it could be a design that you purchased from somewhere else, say like Stalls has pre-made designs. And 59%. No, okay. A lot of people here, the majority are here to learn how to do it. Excellent. So hopefully we'll get that information out to you. The next one coming up here in just a second.
Do you currently use sticky flock?
Sticky flock is a template material that can be cut with a GX24 or similar cutter. It is designed to be cut with a lower cut force than a lot of the other template materials out there, and I'm going to go over 2 of the template materials on the market. Sticky flock is a very interesting and neat one, is that it's layerable, and we're going to show that process a little bit in here too. So quick yes or no, and we should have the poll results coming up any second now.
Okay. Okay, so I just closed it, and it looks like, wow, 92%.
Excellent. I personally love sticky flock. The other material I'm going to show you is I've used it in the past. It's not one of my favorites, but sticky flock is a fantastic material to work with, and I'm very happy that Imprintables now carries it. And we're also going to be emailing everybody who attended the webinar or who has signed up for it a special offer afterwards, so you can get some of that. The next one up here, what type of cutter do you use for your rhinestone designs? Maybe you're using the Ioline GX24, which will work with Rwear Studio, and we'll show that. Maybe you're using a laser cutter and working with one of the hard boards or oil boards, or any other cutter out there, say like a GCC or similar. So real quick answer to that one, and hopefully we'll be able to close this one down.
So it looks like
35% GX24, yep. Excellent.
Yep.
The others in the Ioline and the laser, the Rwear Studio is designed for the GX24. Might make you want to go out and get one after you see some of the things that it can do, but hopefully it'll all apply to you also. And you currently have Rhinestone software. This can be any one of the number of Rhinestone softwares on the market. There's Rwear Studio, obviously, which we're going to be talking about today. And then there's a bunch of other ones on the market, say R-Stones, there's a Mac for Corel, there's Oobling, there's a lot of them out there. And 55% of you say no. Okay, excellent. And we'll also have a special offer that we'll be emailing out to all of you after the webinar as well. So, excellent. So I think that closes down our poll questions. Yeah, let me see if I can get in the right spot here. And we'll go on to the next one. Come on, slides. There we go. This is just the overview. I'm going to spend the vast majority of time in the program itself. I'm not one to sit there on slides for a long period of time or go slide by slide by slide. And if you've been to my webinars, you realize there's not a whole lot of them in there. But what we're going to talk about is the basic layout of the workspace in Rwear Studio, the different medias that we hit on one of them already, sticky flock. Some cutting concerns in as to what type of blade to use and some of the settings for that that'll work a little bit better for you. I'm going to do an overview of the stone library within Rwear Studio and how you can use it to do your pricing and figuring costs, which is a little bit lower down there. Work over the basic shapes, the trace feature, talk about multi-layer designs where I have maybe more than one color rhinestone and how to work with that. Figuring costs with that stone library up there, and multimedia designs where we're combining, say, eco-film or our bling material or something like that along with the rhinestones to capture a little bit bigger design sometimes and make use of multiple types of products to get a better price from your customer with that and make a better profit for yourself. So let's head on over to Rwear Studio. Oh, and fonts. We're going to be working with that a little bit. So first and foremost, here's the Rwear Studio layout. I've already got the rhinestones open. I can close that up with this little button up top, but you've got your basic file and open and close and stuff, the working size for the space itself that we're going to be in here. Output device setup, this is how I'm going to set up our different devices. So on this one in the output setup, I can send it to Roland Rwear. So if I have a design that has a print portion in there, I could either send it to Roland Rwear if I have a VersaCAM printer or a BN20, which are very, very hot right now. I could do the print portion over there with that piece of equipment. I can add some rhinestone portion designs with Rwear Studio here and send it right to the GX24 for cutting. You could also use this with a regular printer down here. Say I've got, right here I'll put my Brother multifunction printer in there, and I want to do a print design on, say, an inkjet transfer paper. And I'm going to have a design in there that's going to print and cut, print on the printer, take it over to my GX24 with the optical registration system, have it cut around the design so I can weed out the excess and apply it to the garment after that. And I can add my cut template and the rhinestones on top of that to embellish it. And we'll show you a design like that and how to set it right up in here. So lots of functions here and lots of ways to output from this. So we'll hit OK on that. In your edit, you have all your basic edit functions: cut, copy, paste, make stroke. You've got your view where you can view the different areas within the Rwear Studio, the different status bars and everything. Format, we're going to play around with this a little bit with the font portion of it. And we can assign different fonts, and we're going to go in and do a single line font editor, which comes with Rwear Studio, to make custom fonts that we can better get rhinestone designs from. The object portion here, this is all your polylines, how to break them apart, integrate them, and work with the designs and the anchor points itself. And one of the big things we're going to play around with is image outline. It's a very powerful portion of this. If you've got Cut Studio in a GX24, you may have used this before. I find that a lot of people out there don't realize how it works and what it can do for you. But it's the same portion that's in Cut Studio, and we can apply it in here. With the engraved portion, I'm not going to really touch on this today. This is for people who have a specific engraver, like one of the EGX series from Roland. And you can do all your settings for the engraver itself with this. And then, of course, the help portion, which has a whole content section and kind of a basic guide throughout the whole program and what it can do. So let's get started with a design. I'll create a new design, and we'll make this maybe 12 inches across by 8 inches high. What you may want to do, let me actually do that again, is make sure if I'm going to be cutting this on the GX24, I need to know the size of my working space. So when I load my material into the GX24, I'll go into the cutting setup of that, and I can access that through Rwear Studio as well. I don't have a GX24 hooked into this computer right now, but I could access the GX24 and have it read from the media on what size I have, so then I know my working size here. I have to have at least that space in there. But for the purpose of today's demonstration, I'm just going to assign it. I have that 12 by 8, and that's our design area over there. Along the left-hand side here, I have my select tool, my node edit tool. So say I had a design here, I'll put a square on there, and I'll right-click and convert it to a polyline so it has actual nodes. And you can see I've got nodes now that I could grab that node here and move it around. So that's my node tool. I can add a node in there so that I can move this around. So the node editing tool, very similar to Cut Studio. I've got a crop tool, trimming, so that if I had a JPEG or a bitmap in here, that I could crop it up. Our zoom in and zoom out tool, our text tool for entering any type of text into here. So I can type right in there and have fonts go in there, and we'll play around with some of the fonts later on and show you some of the features of the single line font editor in here. And then we've got our rectangle, ellipse, so we can draw, oops, forgot to click on it, draw ellipses and circles. So you can hold down the shift to keep it proportional, control to go from the center. So you can do a lot, the same functions in most of the major graphics programs out there on the market today. And we've got our polygon tool, making different polygons and shapes in there. Star, this is polyline. Polyline is just straight lines. So I'm going point to point to point, drawing straight lines in here. And then I can close that object out and have it snap right to it right there. And then that's a closed object in itself. We've got our polycurve tool right here. So when I draw to this one, I can hold and drag it as I've come out of there, and we can get curves this way. So I'll hit another one here, draw my curves around, maybe circle all this stuff, and come back around to the end. So close that out. But that one's a curve tool. And then we've got our freehand tool for drawing just whatever I want on here. And then you can see when I'm done, it's added all the different nodes on there. Now these nodes are important on here as we're going through and adding stones to something, because you can see in some of the points over here, the feature of the start point, end point, or anchor point. Each one of these nodes is an anchor point in there, and we'll show that a little bit later on. You've got a fill color tool, and then I can also assign the line color and line width tool right here. So that's a quick overview of the toolbox on the left-hand side, and we'll go and select all these and get rid of them. Up top, obviously new and open, we can open up an old file, save our stuff, import in some graphics. If I'm working with a JPEG or a bitmap, which we'll do a little bit later on, and I want to trace with this program, I can do that with there, through that button, excuse me. Roland Rwear, this is my integration into VerseWorks if I want to send directly to that. My cutting command, print command, and print and cut. This is if I want to do a print using, say, a desktop printer like the Brother that I have hooked in here with some inkjet paper or some laser toner paper. And I've got those types of transfer mediums. I can set this up with the registration marks that I could then take that paper back over to the GX24 and have it find those registration marks with the optical eye registration and cut out the design there. And we'll show how to set up those cut lines in here. The engrave function would be if you're using one of the engravers like we discussed before. Of course, our undo and redo if I make a mistake and go back. Fits kind of nice here, this one here. Say I draw a portion of the design on here and I hit fit, it's going to fill the screen with that. So sometimes when you're off and I've got something I'm doing over here and I'm like, boy, I just need to zoom in real quick, and instead of using my mouse scroll back and forth, I can just click on fit and it'll fit the screen with all of the design that I have. So I find that one pretty handy on there. And then with this clicked here, obviously my Rhinestone's open over there. I've got property button here. When I click on that, it comes up with the properties of whatever I'm working with. So that kind of covers the tools on the top and tools on the bottom. Let's go over a quick design. So we've got layout over. Let's actually talk about medias to use. And I've got a video here for you guys. Let me bring it up. In this video here, the top pieces here, the one that I'm grabbing there, that's Hardcoat. It's a Sandblast material, and I apologize, it's a little out of focus. The Sandblast material, as you see, I was trying to kind of, let me go back there a little bit, I was trying to bend it a bit and move it around. I've attached it to a foam board. You can see the foam board in the back there. It's just foam core. You could get that from any craft shop or anything like that. And why we do that is the Hardcoat has an adhesive on the back side. Like I said, it's a Sandblast material. It's typically about 20 mils thick. Mils a 1/100th of an inch. And it's a fairly thick substrate and a little bit harder to cut. One of the reasons why I don't like it nearly as much as the sticky flock, which is the stuff down below here, is that you can see for this SGL design here, I have 3 separate templates, and I'm going to have to do each one of them separately. I can't lay one on top of the other on top of the other. Whereas with the sticky flock, I'll hit play again here. This is a Believe design. It's a Christmas design. That's the top of the Santa Claus hat. You can see how it layered right on top of it. And because I have an alignment with the boxes, that the outer box is the same size on it, and this is a Hope design, you can see I put some squares in there to help me with alignment on it. And when I peel it away, you'll see that the second layer has the other portion of the Hope design. So I can layer these two together, one on top of each other. I can set my first portion, say it's the one on the right there is the first portion I'm going to do, and I put all my stones on there and I brush them all in. And then I'll take my tape and I'll put the tape across the top of this with a kind of a hinge over here, maybe a piece of painter's tape or something holding it in place. I'll pull up all my stones off of that, and then I can take this one, put it on top of it using the registration holes there and the fact that my box around it is the exact same size and setup, and both the designs are aligned as you saw before. Let me back it up a little bit. You can see, back it up even more here. Come on. You see that they're both aligned. One. That's one of the things I really like about sticky flock, so that when I have that first layer done and I've picked up the stones with it, I can flip that to the side, keeping my tape. I'll have some masking tape right here holding that tape, the transfer tape across. I'll peel it back here, lay my second one right on top so everything's nice and aligned, brush my different colored stones into this one, and then I can flip that tape back across and it'll pick up those stones and everything will be perfectly aligned. Now I could take that and in one shot transfer it to whatever shirt or bag or garment or whatever I'm putting it onto, instead of with the Heartco ones, as you see up here, they're different pieces. So I'll back up a little bit. Oh, not far enough. On the Heartco ones, you can see I'd have to do 3 separate ones, and I would actually press the shirt 3 times to get that on there because I'd have to layer each one of them on that. So sticky flock is a much easier product to use, and I saw that from the survey results there, a lot of you are already using it, so you're well aware of the fact of how it works and what it can do for you. So let's jump back into our Rwear Studio. That's a little bit about the different medias and how they work. Like I said, sticky flock is my preferred Heartco or any other Sandblast material out there. There's a bunch of different ones on the market. They've been around for a long time. It's a rubbery feel to it. It does stretch a little bit. So there are some concerns with it and with the sticky flock as well, as it does have a little bit of mobility to it there. When you're cutting it, let me bring up the video for cutting. I recommend using a 60-degree blade. And here's the cut video, and we'll let this one run while I'm talking. I recommend using a 60-degree blade for both of these materials, any rhinestone material that's out there, as it's a much more aggressive blade angle. It will cut deeper into the media, and it has more blade exposed there because of its angle. Now you notice this is going pretty slow for this machine. This is only 10 centimeters per second on this GX24, and they're capable of 30 centimeters per second. And I've also changed the up speed on this. That configuration between slowing down the speed and slowing down the up speed on this is going to get us much better cuts, much cleaner cuts, much easier to work with design. Also, you need to change the offset. The offset is the measure of the tip, the distance between the tip of the blade and the center of the blade spindle as it spins around. So there's a little bit of a distance between where the design actually sees the center of the line that it's cutting and where the tip of the blade is actually at. So normally for a 45-degree blade, our offset is about a 0.250, and on a 60-degree blade, it's going to be 0.50. So it's very important to change that so you get complete cuts on this. And there are several tests that you can run with the cutter itself. You see down here in the corner the little test cut that I did before I ran all this. There's several ways to adjust that offset and test to make sure if your cuts are complete, and look at the corners of that circle and square design it does to make sure that you've got a good, accurate offset and then your cuts are completing. So very important to do that. And the test cut here also, anytime you're working with a new blade, an older blade, a different offset to it, and most especially a new material. Say on this machine here I've been cutting eco film earlier. I definitely want to go back and test it when I put in a new material like sticky flock here, because my eco film with a newer blade, say a 45-degree brand new blade, it'll cut at about 50 grams force. I don't need a whole lot to cut that. Whereas the sticky flock here, I was cutting it at 160 grams force with a brand new 60-degree blade. It'll vary based on how new the blade is, or how long it's been in use, how dull it is, but you should always, 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 when you put in a new media, do a test cut on that media. It's extraordinarily important to make sure that you're getting a good, clean test cut. Nothing worse than forgetting to do that, running a big design, and you know, some of these materials can be fairly expensive and some are not so expensive, but anytime you're doing something like this, it really hurts to have a whole bunch of media come out and you find out that your cuts weren't accurate just because the cut force was off and the design's not complete. Especially something like this where you've got a whole bunch of little holes that we have to work with. I want to make sure that my cuts are complete. So that's just cutting away there. Let's get towards the end of it. I think I peel away some so you guys can see them coming off. I think you get the idea of the cutting head going back and forth. And hopefully I come around here and I'm going to peel back the corner so you can see that the holes are already popping out there, and that was that hope ribbon. I cut that earlier. And see how some of them are hanging out there? Let me back that up just a tad. Some of them are hanging out here. What I'll do with sticky flock is I just take a piece of transfer paper, any of our heat transfer masks, place it on top of it, squeegee it down, and I pull it back on the cell. See how I'm almost coming 180 degrees back with it there? I'll pull it back and those holes will pop right out of there. So any of them that are hanging in there, they're just hanging on by a little bit, or the force in between them holding together there and the backing, because it's a waxy backing on it, wasn't enough to have them pop out. But you can see a lot of them are coming out real quick, and if I peel it back at that angle, most of them will come out. So, all right. Any questions so far, Jody? I don't know if you're still hanging out there.
Yes, I just have actually one question, and one of our viewers wanted to know if this will still work if you don't have a GX24.
Unfortunately, our Rwear Studio is designed for the GX24. That's its base operating unit. The GX24, the GX300, 500, 600, all the Roland series machines and engravers that we'll work with. Currently, Roland does not support drivers for all the different units out there. I have had some discussions with several people from Roland. They're not ruling it out, but at this time it is not supported by our Rwear Studio. So unfortunately, it won't work with other brand cutters on the market right now. So hopefully that answers your question. I know it's not what they were looking for, but
I'm sure not.
Is there another question?
Yep. Tony wants to know how our Rwear Studio compares with WinCSign 2012.
I think he's talking about WinPCSign.
Yes.
WinPCSign, there's so many out there on the market. There's Oobling, there's WinPCSign, there's Rwear, Rstones, EasyStone. There's a lot of them on the market. Each one of them has their pluses and minuses between them. I find it very difficult to take one and say apples to oranges. Our Rwear Studio does an extraordinarily good job with the Roland cutters in integrating the print and cut, the cut, and design applications to it. Some of those other ones out there, like WinPCSign, depending on the price that you pay for it and the features that you get into it, it is a good piece of software out there, but I think it's a little bit more apples to oranges type of thing. WinPCSign was a sign design software before it was a Rhinestone software. So I'd love to get in a discussion with anybody offline from the webinar here about the different ones. I've tried several of them out, but I think it's tough to give them an apples-to-apples comparison. So sorry if that didn't answer completely, but I think that's a little bit beyond the scope of the webinar at this time. Any other questions out there?
Yep, one last one. Guy wanted to know if sticky flock is sticky on the back.
It is. It's a repositionable adhesive. So you saw me kind of pulling it up and taking it down there. I've got a chunk of sticky flock that we've used for design in my wife's shop here for probably close to a year now, and we've used it many, many, many times. And the great thing about it is that it is repositionable, reusable, layerable. It's a fantastic material. I don't think I've seen anything else on the market that compares to it. So, personal opinion, though. Any other questions right now?
Is there...
Let's get into our Rwear Studio again here. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, there just was, Greg wanted to know if there was an instruction or user manual for our Rwear.
There's the help menu in there, and it has a little step-by-step tutorial. Hopefully this webinar here will serve as a tutorial for some, because I'm about to get into some of the design stuff. Not too much out there for step-by-step, but we will be designing some more tutorials as requests come through for it. Okay, let's get into, we'll make a real basic design here. We talked about some of the cutting concerns, medias to use, and layout of workspace. Let's do a basic shape. I'll take a star here, probably the easiest one. I'll just draw out a star on there. And this is a shape. It's not necessarily a polyline. But we can come over here, and in our stone library, I can pick all the different sizes. We've got the SS sizing, SS10 and SS12, 6, all that. SS10 is probably the most popular on the market. And if you look at the diameter here, that diameter is slightly larger than an actual SS10. That's to allow for the holes that is created through Rwear Studio to be slightly larger than the stones themselves, to allow them to go into the template material much easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an SS10 here. I'll pick this Ephemist. I never pronounce that right. And you can see the library has Swarovski. I'm terrible at pronouncing that. And hotfix, I can sit here and tell it I want to display all of the colors. Maybe I'm going to go with a 2.5 to 3 millimeter, so I'm going to take it down to my SS10 and 8 and 9 sizes here. And on type, I just want hotfix. I'm not going to use the no hotfix or anything like that. I want hotfix stones. If I want to edit these in here or add some to it, I can hit Edit Stone Library, and it comes up with the entire library of all the Swarovski crystals, all the different colors, hotfix, not hotfix, the transparent ones, everything that's in there. And I can make a copy of any one of these in here and edit it however I want. So maybe I'm going to take that first one here that was a hotfix. I'll make a copy of it, and I could name this. It's an SS05, so I want to leave that. So I'll call this Test Stone. And we'll leave that color. I could change all that. There's my diameter, the size of it, everything else. It's a hotfix. I could change the manufacturer. We'll call this Imprintables is our manufacturer for it. And I can even put in a cost down here. And this is kind of important. So I'll say this one cost me a penny per stone. Or maybe I could say that I'm going to charge 10 cents per stone. We'll use this later on. Once the design is done, I can use this little information button over here, and I can select all the stones, and it'll come up and tell me how many stones of each color, how much they cost, and it'll give me a total cost overall on it. And that cost overall is based on this portion right here, and whether I put in my cost or the retail cost that I'm going to do, you need to choose that when you put that in there. So we'll hit cancel on this because we're not going to adjust that. I'm just going to use the, I had adjusted some pricing. I put it in for that one, and I believe the aquamarine down here. Yep, I've got some pricing on those two. So we'll use this one up here first. It's an SS10 stone, and we're going to, I can use the arrange, rearrange. I've got this stone for doing the line here. When I click on that, you can see all my stones are created all the way around the design there. Very quick, very easy. It's using the start point, end point, and I could even say anchor point, but in this design, the anchor points are the end points right there because it hasn't been converted to curves. So I could now take this whole design and say, well, maybe I don't want to do an outline like that. I want to do a fill. Well, we've got 3 different types of fills here. Also, by the way, you can adjust the gap, the sizing in between each one of these. So say maybe I'm going to have a little bit more of a gap. I'll put 0.5. And we'll hit that again. You can see it opened it up around the stones a little bit more. There's more of a gap in between each one of them. You don't want to get too close with your stones. I see some designs out there where people are trying to jam so many stones into a small area, and it gets too difficult for the cutter to cut each and every one of those, and you can get it where you get overlaps or they're just so close that it's not converting properly. So you have to be careful with how much gap is in there. 0.05 is a good one. 0.04 is not bad either, and that's what it was at before. So you can stay with that one there and get really good designs out of it. Now, say I want to go with a fill on this instead. We've got island fill, and we'll leave the defaults there. So there's our island fill all the way in. Personal favorite of mine out of all the fills. I think that looks very nice in there. And then we could say maybe do a grid pattern. We'll grab this and do a grid pattern. A little bit different, a lot more stones in there, and it's got a nice pattern to it. And we can adjust each one of these later on. And we'll try a staggered pattern. I think the staggered and the grid are pretty close. I can see where this one might need to have some stones added in there, and I don't think they're as smooth when you're using the grid or staggered pattern. If I'm doing a large area with multiple colors in a fill, those work nicely, but for the most part, my favorite one's the island fill. I think it gets a little cleaner design to it. Now we can adjust the pitch. The pitch is the distance in between each one of these lines. You can adjust the pitch here, so maybe we'll do a 0.25. And we'll do that island fill and adjust it. 0.157. Let me try that again. And you can see it increase the pitch or the spacing in between each one of those. So you can play with that, and then the gap down here again for how much gap is in between those stones. So say we'll put 0.05, and we'll hit that, and you'll see that there's more spacing in between all the stones there. So you can play with all these different things over here and adjust it however you would like. Now all of these stones are still integrated together into the design, as you can see here. As I'm moving it around, they're all locked together. I have to release those stones from that original line that we created there, that star shape. So down below here, we have release. Excuse me. And what this does is when I click on that, you'll see that the line has popped out in there. And I can move that line off to the side. That's my original design line that we created. And all these stars now are individual. So they're each their own little spot there. So I can put that guy back. I just hit Control-Z. Now maybe I wanted to put one right in the center there. I think that I just want one more stone in there. To add a single stone, I can come over to my stone library here, just grab one, left click on it, and drag it in here. I'll drag it till it's right in there, and boom. Here we have that one. I'm going to zoom in a little bit because I want to space it in. I can use my arrow keys to kind of move it around, and then I've got it in the center there. I could possibly take these, and I want to bump them out just a little bit. So I use my arrow keys to move those out just to where I want, or I could even just grab it and move it to where I want. Let's grab this guy and move him down here. So we can adjust each one of these to get the final design that we want. So that's an overview of the line portion and the fill portion right here. Again, we could take that design again and single line to it. You can also use the offset tool. The offset tool will give you successive lines inside or outside. So I could right-click on this design here, and remember it's a shape. It's not a polyline right now. So I need to convert this to a polyline to be able to do some of the other functions with it. So I'll hit Convert to Polyline, and now I could come over to my object, and I can, where did it go to? Where's my offset? There. I might not have it selected properly. Is that a polyline? It is a polyline, so object and offset. There we go. I must have done something a little wrong there. And we'll say 0.1. I'll do 0.1, and I'm going to go to the inside. You can see it's kind of doing a contour inwards. So that's a little tight in between those two. So let's back that up, and I'll do object, offset, and maybe we'll do 0.2. And then I'll select the one on the inside again and do the same. Object, offset, 0.2. And I want to do another one here. I'm going to do a few of these, and you'll see why in a second. 0.2, and one more. Object, offset, 0.2. Okay, so now I've got a succession of lines, and I chose to have them 0.2. I remember the pitch that I had on the other one was 0.25, and on this one I chose 0.2. It's a little bit tighter in there, and I can control it a little bit better. But one of the things I like about doing it this way is I can control each and every single one of these. So now I can come up here, and there's my lines for that one. I'll do this one, and so on and so forth. And I have a little bit more control out of each and every one of those successive lines. It's very similar to what the island fill does, but I think it gives a little bit better pattern when you control it manually like that. I could have taken this center one and said, well, let's do an island fill on that. And see, it didn't come out very nice inside there. I'm not happy with that. So maybe we'll do one more offset there, and we'll see if we can get a good one in there. That's pretty small. So we'll take this one and do that, and this last one. And it may come very similar. Yeah, we still need a little cleanup in there. But you can see how you can control the individual components, and we can adjust it manually or automatically depending on the results that we're looking for. This is a little tighter look to it, a little cleaner look in my opinion. I could come in here on this one and maybe just nudge those stones in there and adjust it however I want, or I can have it just do the designs there, and we'll have to release them from that line. So I'll go back down to my release button, and then I can adjust these guys out. Take that one in there, we'll delete the line that's there. I'll take my one here and zoom in a little bit. We'll raise him up a bit so it's a little bit nicer looking design. The question from earlier about the different design software, I see the t-shirt forums and other places where they're debating the different design studios and Rwear Studio and WinPC and all that. I don't think there's any design program on the market right now that does everything. There's no automatic magic wand that gets everything perfect every single time. But this does a pretty good job of getting most of the automatic functions in there for us, and then we can do the little touch-ups like I just did there and make a very nice looking design. I could also, I had converted the inner one to a polyline, so I can't do it there. I could also come over to this and we'll do that SS10 there, and let's change some colors. See, I'm selecting the portion in there. I'll hit Control-Z to put it back. And on this one, I'll change that one to another color. And I can't do it on the innermost one because that one was filled in. So let's zoom back out. We'll hit Control-Z a few times here and see if we can get to that last one there. Maybe I'm going to fill that one with aquamarine. And then I can take this guy here and do aquamarine, single line. And then this guy here and do aquamarine, single line. So now I've got a multicolor design here from simply changing over the different portions there. Let's get rid of these guys over here. I don't need those anymore, so we'll delete that. Take our whole design here and see how they're all attached to those polylines still. They're all attached to it. So that's a group. So I'd have to release those before I go too terrible far with it. So working with the basic shapes in here, you can do the same thing with a circle, a square, anything else that you've got come in here. You can import an EPS file into Rwear Studio and work from that. I can also input in a JPEG or a bitmap. So let's do that now. We'll select all these guys and just delete it. So now I'm going to use that import that we were talking about earlier, and we'll import in. And I've created a bulldogs or bobcat, I'm sorry, design earlier. And we'll open that guy up. Came in with this big design, so we need to resize it to what we want. So we'll go to the properties of it. I right-clicked on it, and I want this to be, we'll say, 10 inches across. And it'll automatically keep it constrained to proportion. We can do that fit one to bring everything and zoom out just a hair so I can see it a little bit better. But this is my bitmap or JPEG image here. Now with this one, I'm going to use the trace function and outline function that's inside of Rwear Studio. It's also in the Cut Studio program. What I'm going to do is take Object and Image Outline. When I click on the image outline, it opens up this dialog box here where I can have it trace within it. And you can see I've got all the lines within the design here from that plaid pattern that was on it. If I change the image density up higher, it doesn't really get too much more because it's got it all nice and dark inside there. But as we lower it, you're going to see it gradually there. It's starting to bring in some of those lines, and I don't want it like that. I just want an outline around the whole design because maybe this is one that I'm going to do a print and cut. I'm going to use some inkjet transfer paper, and I'm going to print out that bobcat's portion, and I want a cut line to cut it out. And I want to put rhinestones around the outside of the whole design to kind of make a multimedia. Now I've got either something from a Roland Rwear print and cut system or the BN20, and I also could do an inkjet transfer or something along that line, and I'm going to have those rhinestones going around the outside of the whole thing. So I can get a higher price for it because it's got that extra bling factor there. Or I could simply send the cut file to the cut lines that we'll extract here over to GX24 and cut out some eco film or bling or something like that. And I've still got a multimedia design. These are extremely popular right now. I see them all over the web, different people posting them up. I've seen them out at the shows. I've seen them around town. Very, very popular here. So we adjusted our density and got what I'm fairly happy with right here. And I'll click on this Extract Contour Lines. And you can see the cut line that it made around it. I'll drop out the image, but there's the cut line that it created around this whole design. I could adjust the density of it and extract cut lines again. It's not going to change much in here because it got a pretty sharp, pretty close one to it. And pop the image back on there if I want to take a look at it. When I hit OK, and I zoom in, you got to zoom in real close to see this, you can see there's the cut line right there. There's the image outline that it extracted. So if I told this to be a cut line, that's what it would cut when I set it up for print and cut operations. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add those rhinestones to the outside of it. So if I went right now and say had that aquamarine one and I just did my outline one, there's all my stones, but it's kind of cluttered. They're all on the edge, and anybody who's dealt with rhinestones so far knows that they don't really adhere very well to vinyl. In fact, we recommend against it, and they don't adhere to any of the heat transfer materials very well. So maybe we want to back that up a bit, and I'm going to offset that line so that those stones are now outside of the whole thing there. So what I'll do is I'll go to my object, and we'll click on offset, and we'll do maybe, let's say 0.2 inches, and we'll do it to the outside, and I hit OK. And now that's a little too much, I think. That's a little too far out. So let's do object, offset, and we'll do 0.1. We'll see how that one comes out. 0.1 inch to the outside. And now I've got a line that's going all the way around the outside. Now I don't want stones on the inside here, here, or this portion here, or anything like that. So I'm going to get rid of those guys. And what I need to do is break this apart, because if I move that, you can see everything's together right now, that whole bobcat. So we'll put that back where it is, and I can simply right-click on it and break the polyline. So now I've got separate objects, and I'll go around and I'll zoom out just a little bit and start selecting the inner portions. I don't want that one, this one right here, this guy here, and right in there. I think I've got all of them. Yeah. So now I can take my line on the outside here, and I'll do that same. Put the align the stones to the outside edge of it, and now I've got rhinestones going right around the outside of this all the way around. And I have a few items in there, like right here they're a little close, and right there they're too close, so I could take that whole line. And remember, we need to release them from the line, so I'll hit the release button, and then I can come in and grab these individuals. Maybe I'm going to take this stone right here and move it in just a little bit. Oops. And press the button too many times and my computer beeped at me. So I'll move that one so it's not going to have any issues. And maybe I move this guy right here so he's kind of in between those two. And I saw one over here that was pretty close, so maybe we'll take this guy here and just move him down a little bit, and take this one here and move it a little bit. So you can adjust those around however you want to get your final design. Oop. Hit fit, and I had that one selected. So we'll zoom out. So you can see that I've got the stones going all the way around the outside, and that's a nice little design there. I can select that whole polyline, and let's delete that. So we've just got our stones right there. And now the line on the inside here that goes around the bobcat that was matched to the edge of the design, we'll put it back. I can convert that one, right-click, and I'm going to go to Properties of it, Fill in Line, and I want it to be a cutting line right here. So when I click on that cutting line and hit OK, if we zoom in on it, you can see it's almost a red dashed line. See that red dashing right there? That means that it's a cut line. If I were to send this over to the GX24 or over to the VersaWorks or BN20 or anything like that, it would now see this as a cut line and use that cut data from that. So now I've got the design all set up for rhinestones around the outside. I've got a printed design on the inside with a very cool pattern. I've got my cut line around the outside of it, and it was all from within one program, which is pretty tremendous in my book. So we could take this whole thing here, and maybe we'll select it all. And let's check out our costs here. We'll go to the information button, and it tells me that I've got 369 pieces in here of those stones. And remember, I said that they were 10 cents a piece, so that's $3.69 in rhinestones. So that's where your information for the costing comes in. So we'll click outside of that. So that's a way to use the trace feature and work in between them. Now, if I had a multi-layer design and I wanted to have another color around the outside of this one here. So let's go back a couple. So there's our line there, and I want to have two colors around the outside of it. I just hit Control-Z a couple times so I could get that one line back, and now I'll do the offset again. and we're going to do 0.1 again to the outside. So now I've got another line out there that may be too close, but we'll take a look. We'll do SS10 and around it. Yeah, that's too close. So let's adjust that. And we'll do object and offset, and we'll do 0.2 to the outside. So we've got that there, and now I'll use my SS10 and place those stones around. So I've got a second layer of stones here going around that whole thing. What I have to remember on this is I need some sort of registration. If you remember from the video, I either created a box that went around the whole thing that's the same size for both of them. So I have a box that goes around there, and I cut that whole portion out of sticky flock. Or I could use a series of smaller boxes, as I had with that Hope design, and use those as kind of registration marks for lining up the pieces of sticky flock to have them overlap in the correct spots so that when I brush on my stones, it's not going to fall into the other stone spot. So when I'm working with a multi-layer design, having some sort of registration, either a box or you could use maybe a bigger stone hole or something like that. I'd have to change the diameter up here and go with a SS20 or something like that. So I've got a really big hole that I can use to line up the different layers. And it's a very easy, convenient way to line up multi-layer designs. So we've gone over multimedia. We've gone over multi-layer designs. Let's talk about fonts. So we'll get rid of this, and we'll do another 12 by 8. And if I want to put a font in here and type in some lettering, so I'm just going to do Rwear. So we take that Rwear, make it nice and big. And say this is my design here that I'm going to do stones with this, and I'm going to do that SS10 again, and I'm going to put it to the outlines. Not bad, but not necessarily what we're always looking for. A lot of times we want to see the stones go on a line in between. Some fonts, like this one here, work fairly well. This is an Arial font, and it's got a decent distance in between it, but that's a fairly large font right there, too. If I go to the format and font here, we can see the spacing of it, the width, and all that, the boldness of it. I can increase my boldness and make this real thick if I wanted to. There's a lot I can control from here. Size and shape is right there. That's 8.5 inches wide and 1.68 inches tall. That's a fairly big design for some stones. But if I wanted to try to create a line that goes inside there, let me change this font over because I made one earlier. We'll do Bada Boom. Where's Bada Boom? Right there, right in front of my eyes. So we'll change that font over to Bada Boom, and maybe now I need to change my spacing on it, my kerning in here. So line spacing, character spacing, we'll preset to 200. Oh, way too far, but you guys get the idea. We'll do, instead of 200, we'll do 150. So I've got a little bit of space in between it. So I've got that there, and now I do the lines not nearly as good looking as it could be. But if I did a single line inside of it, that can solve that problem for me. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to our Make Stroke under Edit. So I click on Make Stroke, and it's going to open up the single line font editor for me. So we'll do New, and I'm going to do that Bada Boom right here. And when I hit OK on this, it generates the entire font, and it converts to the inside of it a single stroke. Now I could go through here and say, like, this W doesn't look right to me. I can come in and I want that line to be further down, so I can take this particular node and bring it down and adjust this one over to where I like it. And I could adjust this portion here, grab that node, and maybe bring it up to here. And I don't need this extra one here, so I'll just delete it. I can adjust this entire font character by character until I get it where I want, and then I'll save it. So when I save this, I worked on this a little bit earlier. I had a Bada Boom single line font is what I created here, and now I can go back into Rwear Studio, and instead of just using this right here, I can change that font. And since I saved it earlier, we'll go back to the top. All the single line fonts are near the top, and I'll choose that single line font, and you can see it right there. Hit OK, and now it's that single center line in there. When I apply this to it, it's much more readable. It's easier to discern on it. You could double up the lines if you wanted to in that single line font editor. You can adjust them however you want, but the program has the capability of creating your own custom Rhinestone fonts with that editor, so that any Windows font that you have, anything that's in your font library at all on that computer, you can now create a Rhinestone font that's typable to be able to create your different projects for it. That to me is a huge plus in this program over some of the other ones on the market. And then I can do all these fonts and I can adjust them and I can custom make them however I want and create something that'll work within this. So it's a little bit on the fonts there. Now I am going to jump back over and make sure that we covered everything, because we're coming towards the end of the webinar and I want to make sure that everybody got a chance to get their questions answered. I'm sure we've got a few more here.
Yep, you absolutely do, Stephen.
You with us, Jody?
I am. How do you do, and I think it looks like you covered this, but how do you do a multicolor with the stones that are the same size?
That would be with the sticky flock, as I was showing, having those registration marks, or the way that I do it a lot of times too is having the box around everything the same. So say this was, we're going to break this apart. Well, I'd add something else in here. We'll do a box around it here, and we'll choose a different color and do it around there. So now I've got two that I have to line up. I could do a small box here, and a small box here is my registration, as I did in that one video showing there you can see the registration area that I used, or you can use a bigger stone size is how I do that. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yep.
We got a few more?
Yep, just two more. Will the rhinestones stick to any print cut media like opaque?
No. I know that's a very abrupt answer to it. I have not had success with any hot fix stone that I've attempted on the market sticking to any vinyl. I've seen some people claim that theirs do. I'd love to test it. If somebody's got one on the market that they say that it does, send it to me. I'd be more than happy to test it out and try it on all the heat transfer materials. Anybody's been to some of my webinars and into my different sites and blogs know I work with the VersaCams constantly. I've got tons of different heat transfer materials here, and I'm always testing stuff. But I have yet to find a stone that will consistently adhere to a vinyl print and cut or cut only and not come off in a short period of time.
And one final question, will it allow you to import embroidery files to trace?
Unfortunately, Rwear Studio, Cut Studio, and all those programs, they do not allow for bringing in, well, I guess I should rephrase that. You could bring in that DST file if in your embroidery software there's a way to export it as a JPEG. Just realize you'll have to work with that whole slider. Let me see if I can. We'll import in that design again. We'll do this pumpkin one. I had a pumpkin on there too. So let's make this a bit smaller. Say this was a stitch file. Let me get rid of all these guys. And realize the stitch lines would be in there, but as I work with the image outline, you could adjust the density to get more or less. And you see how quickly I go to the far side here, it's doing real dark, it's not getting any of that stuff in there. You may have to do that with that design that's an embroidery file. So that's how I would work that one there and try to get it to get a nice medium where we've got a decent trace on it. Once you've got somewhat of a trace on it, you could go back and edit those nodes and work with a little bit more. So originally I said no, but I think you probably could, depending on the quality and level of JPEG or bitmap you could get out of the design program. So hopefully that helps the person who asked the question out there.
And finally, Stephen, do you have any tips for pricing custom designs?
Boy, that's a tough one. I've seen so many different prices out there. I've seen people do 10 cents a stone. I've seen people have ranges where 500 or less stones, it's $5, or that's a bad example, not $5 because that'd be our cost. $10, $15, something like that. It depends on what your market can bear. If I were to talk to one of my customers, say in Southern California, they're not nearly going to get as much as somebody would in the New England area. There's a lot more bling in the Southern California area than there is up in New England. So you're going to get price differences in there. Your best bet would be search around the internet, see what other people are getting for the pricing on it. Realize that most of your stones, when you buy them in bulk, are much less than a penny per stone. So even putting in 1 cent per stone there, I'm being a little bit on the high side with it. So if I'm charging maybe 10 cents a stone, I'm making a very good profit off of this. Your initial cost is going to be in the stones themselves, the sticky flock material or whatever media you're working with, and the software and the equipment. Once you've recouped that, and realize, especially with something like sticky flock, you can use it over and over and over again. So if you think that the material is a little on the pricier side, realize it's very reusable and customizable. So hopefully that helped that person out. I think we have time for one more if there's any more out there.
Nope, that looks like the end of the questions, Stephen.
Well, we didn't do too bad on time. It looks like it's 2:56. So I've got my last slide.
Oh, somebody said
here.
Wait.
Wait, there's more.
They said wait. Susan did want you to know she thought this was a great webinar, and she said thank you.
Thank you so much, Susan. I appreciate that. It's I always appreciate the feedback from people, and it means a lot to us as we're trying to make sure that we get a good product out to you guys out there and that it gets the information you're looking for. I see that we didn't have too many people that left. Looks like the majority of people stuck around, so I appreciate you all coming out. I have the one last slide here. Let's see if I can bring it up. There it goes. There are tons of features in this. I touched the surface. An hour really is not adequate to go through the software. Also, please send me your ideas. You enjoyed the webinar and the video here and the other videos that we have on Great Garment Graphics and our different YouTube channels. Please send us your ideas because we'd love to help you guys out. That's what we're here for. You can send them personally to me at steven@imprintables.com. And here's my phone numbers and email again. The main line is 800-347-0068, and my personal desk line is 518-630-6655. Everyone who signed up for the webinar and came today or just signed up for it, you guys out there who were held up and couldn't make it, we appreciate you signing up for it. I'm going to send out an email this week that will have some more information, some special offers for you on our Rwear Studio and Sticky Flock. So that's all I have today.
We do have a couple more questions.
Oh, Casey, all right.
Yep. Casey wanted to know if Sticky Flock could work for body stencils.
If you're using it for cutting it and then using that as a stencil to maybe paint over or something like that, yeah, it would. I think it'd be a little expensive for what you're doing. Sticky flock, being the flock material that it is, it would be durable enough to work for that, absolutely. But I think there are lower cost materials out there. Sticky flock is designed to a certain thickness so that your stones will set into the holes properly. So if she wants to contact me, I could help her source some other materials that might be a little less expensive than that and serve just as good a purpose.
Okay, and then how would you store the cut design on Sticky Flock?
I have a little container that I got at Office Max. It's like a 6-drawer craft type thing where you can put it in there, and it's just these clear drawers that pull out. It's got rollers on the bottom of it, and I stick them in there on the backing that they were on when we cut it. So I'll stack them on top of them if it's a multi-layer design, and then put it on the backing and just store it in the drawers there. And hopefully I label my drawers well enough so that we're not searching through too much.
And that looks like about it. I would like to remind everybody that this session is being recorded. We will have it posted over the next couple days, hopefully tomorrow. And also, just a reminder, if you haven't heard about it yet, Stalls and Transfer Express are putting on an event called the D3 if you're in the Cleveland area or feel like taking a trip to the Cleveland area. It's actually a hands-on how-to seminar that is going to have several tracks, educational, and you can also apply your own designs. So everything you see done there, you're going to be able to do yourself while you're there. So if you'd like more information, just go to stalls.com, or we will be posting it on Great Garment Graphics.
Well, shoot, I want to go. That sounds like fun.
Come, Stephen.
Anytime you can get your hands on stuff and make a product and learn how it's done by getting your hands on it, boy, I think that's the best training you can get. So that sounds like a fantastic opportunity. So thanks for putting that out there for us.
Yes, and thank you for doing this seminar.
All right. Well, the next webinar is on August 30th. You can see them all at greatgarmentgraphics.com. I want to thank everybody for stopping by again, and I hope to see you all at the next webinar. Thanks, everyone.